We did have someone who said, oh, I really like to see a burrow build earlier. Well, we can always throw out the Prairie Baneling build. That build never really gets old. But I'd kind of like to do something a little bit more creative here, if possible. But I haven't really thought it out. So I think we're going to have to do something a little bit simplistic to start. So what we're going to do is we are going to do one of the most generic ZvZ aggressive plays in the book. All right? And that is going to be just really... Actually... 2 gas Baneling, actually. We'll do a Targa Bane. Alright, guys, we're going to do a Targa Bane attack. Now, the Targa Bane... Targa's a Norwegian ex-pro, ex-Warcraft pro as well. And, he's been retired for a long time. But he came and was studying in Australia and lived here for a while, for a couple of years in the early days of StarCraft 2. And there was like a year where he just started winning every Zerg vs. Zerg, where right when people were trying to swap into Roaches after the Ling Bane skirmishes, he would do another Ling Bane attack, but he'd have taken a second gas, and he'd morph like 25 Banelings and just fucking roll them in. Slow Banes, and just go for your workers. And you'd be like, oh, you're spreading your Roaches and you're detonating your Banes and you defend, and like, you think you've taken the best trade, and you look in your main and somehow 4 of them got in there and your entire worker line's dead, and you're like, what the hell, this is insane. So what we're going to do is just a Ling Bane attack, a standard one, but then we're going to add a second gas, a bunch of drones. Normally you'd go into a Roach Bane. That's the logical next wave of attack. But I'm literally just going to be like, no, I'm going to make enough Banes to like blow up your queens. And people are like, well, that's just inefficient. That's a really stupid pig. And I'm like, I know. They're like, I mean, shouldn't you be at least trying to win? I'm like, oh, no, I will make it win. Don't doubt me. Don't you fucking doubt me, Twitch chat. Have I not proved to you my ability? I feel most inspired when I know my strategy shouldn't win. This is when I dig the deepest. It's probably a bad habit and says something about my brain being a little bit stupid, that I'm like, why can't you just switch that on when you're doing a normal game? Ooh, trying to win the little Ling skirmish. Oh, the queen is there? Ah! We already built that Overlord. Alright. I'll get that now, just to make sure I don't forget it. We're gonna have just 1 forward Baneling. One backup Baneling. Wait, where's your... Oh. He hasn't built a Baneling nest. Okay, this is just a free win. I think. Oh, that's a Baneling nest. It's just a very late one. Okay. Get him! You say hello, I say get killed. Get killed, get killed!
Well, you hatched the queen.
I'm your queen, Mandy.
Your Zerg are picking a fight.
They do that.
Okay. So we've got 2 gases now. Some people at this point would try to do all sorts of intelligent things. Not me. Just make sure. Oh, he does that. Yeah, he's got workers there.
Your Zerg sneaked out.
Oh, tell me this isn't the funniest shit ever.
The enemy has met your Zerg.
In a hostile way.
Yeah, Banelings beat roaches.
The Zerg are picking a fight.
They do that. You had some competition.
Oh shit! What a fucking stupid build. Oh, it's so fun. Oh my god. What was this? What was my opponent's build order? Because actually, I didn't kill any drones at the start. So, like, they had a worker lead, but they just did, like, a really, really slow Bane nest initially, right? It was like, I'll just defend with 3 queens, which is, like, and then go up to 5 queens. It's one of these builds where you just try to make, like, 1 billion queens and skip Banelings for a while, but then you still go Banelings. So, this is what I call a Jim Rising build. It's one of these builds I look at, and, like, my brain, literally, it's like when you try to do something on a calculator that doesn't work, and it just, syntax error. And I go, what? Wait, so we're going Lings with Banes, but we're going the Banes late, and we're getting 5 queens. And it's just like, it's basically, normally, my brain in ZvZ is all about sharp, pointed attacks, pressures, ways of defeating your opponent. And this build is about the slowest, most generic progression up the tech tree, and not really looking to pressure your opponent in super hard, crisp ways, but more just to be like, I'll slowly get Banes. I'll have a lot of queens because they're a generically defensive unit. It's like this real ZvZ that lacks a sharp direction, right? And that's not a bad thing necessarily because your opponent can't really read it because there is nothing to read. You're just kind of doing a very weird mixture of, I'm going Ling Bane, but late, and lots of queens, but I am going to roaches. It's a weird build. That's it. It's like, because you're not going sharp in one direction. That means if your opponent can kind of kill themselves on this build, not realizing, oh shit, 5 queens, big defensive boost. They can have lots of roaches that come out later with +1. Even you're like, aren't you going mutas with the delayed Bane nest and the, isn't this melee? Oh, I thought that was melee or carapace. I didn't think it was +1 range. So it's one of these very hard to read builds. It looks like it's you're rushing mutas or something, but then there's a third and you're like, and then there's more queens than you ever have normally in a ZvZ build because they're so defensive. So the problem with this sort of build is twofold. A really economic standard defensive Ling Bane opening, you're just going to get ahead, right? Because you defend with a handful of Banes, your own 3 queens, but you're droning harder because you're not making 5 or 6 queens. What's good about that build, though, it gives you a smoother transition. Your opponent goes mutas. Oh, you've already built 5 queens by default. You don't give a shit. Oh, okay, cool. You're going for a +1 range without really having to see anything. You're going to not be too far behind with that build. So stability off that build is actually incredible. I can totally understand why someone would do that. For me, it's kind of like trying to do a safe expand build in PvP, where I think it's the wrong way to play the matchup. Like, I think PvP, Zerg versus Zerg, these are the 2 matchups where you go, is sitting there and trying to get an expansion and go to the mid game a good way to play? I don't think so. I think having some sharp, bloody attacks to make sure your opponent's not being a cheeky bugger and to potentially just kill them if they're being too greedy. Like, that's the way you keep your opponent in check. There's too many crazy things they can do where they just be crazy greedy, crazy economic. So you want to keep your opponent in check and kind of keep them under the gun a little bit with some sharp pressure. So that's kind of my goal in ZvZ. It's why when I see these builds, I'm always like, oh, he's faking Banelings and going mutas, or he's doing this, and he's, yeah. But I never get the right read on those builds. And then I always look at the replay and I go, wait, so you're going Lings, but then Banes, but then drones, but then queens, and then into roaches? And I'm like, oh, and it wrinkles my brain, because for me, I always want to do a clear, sharp pressure, macro hard off the back of it, and react to what I saw with that pressure as well. A lot of people want to just have more of like a less reactive build order, more of a solid build, which was a very good way to play in Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty. Comparatively, there was less options, less strategies, less variants. With the quicker start, as well as with the new units and the new tech trees that have opened up, faster Mutalisks and all that sort of stuff, there's more options. So it's always better to pressure your opponent, keep them under your thumb a little bit, keep control of them, you know?